I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.
Everybody, wait a minute.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to our Mix What I Like right here at Black Power Media. Again, I'm Jared Ball, very happy to be your host. Come on in, reach out, invite folks to join you. We got a big show this morning, of course.
Keep me right there, everybody, wait a minute.
Got the Good Vibe Band welcoming us in this morning. And yes, Eric, and to those who continue to ask, this is my special mix, DC Zone Vibe Band, and a little bit of Mark Anthony's Vivir Mi Vida. The goal once upon a time was to have this be turned into a black and brown revolutionary anthem that featured go-go music with a little bit of salsa, my two favorite pockets. You can't find it anywhere. People keep asking me where can they find it, and I appreciate that. You can't find it. This is not Mix What I Like exclusive for us. Anyway, before we go anywhere, I wanted to, speaking of DC, my new favorite team is my old favorite team, and I peeked up, lifted up the lid on the NFL a little bit this weekend and saw that nothing's changed. But I love that the new name allows this joke here. So all hail the commies, of course. Formerly the Washington Slurs are now the Washington Commanders, and we love it, and we love it, and we love it. So I wanted to start there, and of course they continue to lose, and of course they continue to, continue to lose. But anyway. Before I get to anything serious, again, I want to continue to encourage everybody to support the channel, like, share, subscribe, join if you can, Patreon, all of that. We have the BPM fundraiser. The link will be in the show description. All of that can be found at blackpowermedia.org. So please go there and support in any number of ways, including the merch, which, continues to expand. I just placed a new order this morning, in fact. So, please do that. And continue to put guest suggestions for our crew, Josh and Aaliyah, in the Discord. Please, the link, all of that is in the show description as well. So appreciate them and appreciate you all as well, continuing to do that. And then one other thing, I couldn't help, I saw the recent, I think published just yesterday, commentary from John Oliver on HBO, who clearly he or his staff is watching our show and watched our recent discussion of museums and cultural and national identity, cultural memory, and they did a segment. Again, just apparently recently published, I think on YouTube, on their YouTube channel this morning. The link to their show is in the show description already. I'm not going to play it because I don't want to get a copyright hit. But there were a couple of things. It's very funny, very well produced. It's in 2 parts. But of course, it has its limitations, given it's John Oliver, it's HBO, et cetera, and so forth. But a couple of things I wanted to point out, and as I'm pointing that out, I am going to add to the screen this video here, which is allegedly depicting video taken in the Cairo Museum circa 2004, where you are officially not allowed to photograph or videotape. So this is all alleged, or being alleged. Cairo, of course, Arabs, of course, having their own particular relationship to this colonial history. With, as I've read before, 90% of all tourism that goes to the entire African continent goes to Egypt for just these purposes here. The Kemetic or African origins often not included or focused or, you know. But the John Oliver story, and I love that I'm leaving the pocket on for this segment, for this little introductory segment. The authenticity. Anyway, the premise of the John Oliver segment was that the Greeks, he starts off with the Greeks, this is so funny, being mad at the British for stealing Greek artifacts to be deposited, housed, and made and profited from in the British Museum. So I thought that was funny. As again, I'm showing in a video taken allegedly in the Cairo Museum circa 2004 of African artifacts in what we now know of as Egypt that gets zero credit from the Greeks for having helped them along, shall we say. So I thought that was funny. John Oliver does point out that, similar to the stat I mentioned just a second ago, 90% of Africa's art is held outside of Africa. Hence why I agree with Killmonger. And in their segment, they make reference to a real life Congolese Killmonger in this regard. I'll let you all see that without spoiling it. And when they interview a French museum curator who and ask, why don't you just return the art, or whose art, who does the art rightfully belong to? He says it belongs to us, the French. It belongs to those who have it. The rules of that day said that plunder was legal, loot was legal, and colonial theft was legal, and we ended up with the goods, so now it's ours. And then he says, because if we give it back, and I want, and then I heard, I heard in his response why there cannot be an actual movement from their perspective for reparations. He says, if we give the art back, then he says, quote, when does it stop? In other words, we would have to give, from my humble interpretation, we would have to give back everything. We would have no France if we gave back everything we stole and are stealing, which leads to my final point, and I'll wrap it up here, that for John Oliver, the focus seems to be to reconcile the colonial past by returning stolen items. But what a key difference in our presentations or discussion of it is that I am saying the colonialism that he is saying needs to be reconciled is still happening, and therefore can't be reconciled in this way, because museums, and this is a point I think he doesn't get, reflect the victory of the colonizer over the colonized. It's again, as I was arguing before, an entombment of movements and people who have meant to be and are to be conquered. So to return it all would be even symbolically impossible. So anyway, just leave it there. Just leave it there for now. Hail to the commies. All right, let's get to our first guest this morning and talk a little bit about Brazil and the elections taking place. Hot stuff happening. Let's get to that right now. So don't go anywhere. Much more coming up right here at I Mix What I Like. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. All right. Welcome back, everybody. I mix what I like right here, Black Power Media. Again, I'm Jared Ball, and joining me now is my main man, Dr. Ollie Johnson, who, among many other things, I think, is this bio a little bit out of date? I don't think you're still the chair, but former chair, current chair, and professor in the Department of African American Studies at Wayne State University. Among many other things, Dr. Johnson has written on the Black Panther Party, Black politics, and has done extensive research on the history of politics of Brazil. So welcome back, Dr. Johnson, fresh off another visit that I can't wait to hear some about. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing good, man. Good morning. Thanks for having me. Yes, I am
pleasure.
Chair and professor in the Department of African American Studies, Wayne State University, beginning my second term as chair.
That's right.
They pulled me back in.
My bad. I can't keep up with the illustrious career that you have, and deservedly so have. And where you, my bad. So yeah, good. So good. And I also got a chance to change my background now that we get caught up and look a little fresh for a discussion of Brazil. You've just come back from another extended visit. Let's just start. What's going on with the elections? I saw this morning in the news that it's getting heated. The contestants are being reduced to apparently Bolsonaro versus Lula. What's happening? What's the latest?
Well, let me just say it's hot in here, man. It's hot in here. And since you showing your background, let me try to do my front ground, man.
All right, there you go. Race, politics, and education in Brazil. The link to your page where people can find the how to get that book is also in the show's description. So
thanks much, man. I put it there because it's a good book for folks who want to get some recent information, historical context to what's going on in Brazil. Brazil had elections yesterday, and I'll just say all is not well, man. All is not well. Starting at the top, Luiz Ignacio Lula da Silva came in first place in the presidential election, but he did not receive the 50% plus one majority that would have been necessary to avoid a runoff. So he is going into a runoff 4 weeks from now with the current president, Jair Bolsonaro, AKA Brazilian Trump. And so things are very difficult, scary, challenging in Brazil because the pollsters suggested Lula was up by 10 points and he was likely to win in the first round, but he got 48% of the vote and Bolsonaro got 43% of the vote. And there were two other candidates with 4% and 3% of the vote, and then 7 other candidates with less than 1% of the vote. And so this was not the victory that progressive forces hoped for. And while I think that Lula will win the election 4 weeks from now, it's not guaranteed. You're talking to the man who predicted in Brazil that Hillary Clinton was going to defeat Donald Trump. And my Brazilian friends remind me of that prediction regularly. And so I should say, I think and I hope that Lula wins because I think he's a center-left symbol of progressive thought and policy, but victory isn't guaranteed because there are millions of Brazilians who support the current president despite his racism, despite his sexism, despite his nostalgia for the military dictatorship, which lasted from 1964 to 1985. And so that part of it is disturbing and outrageous to me. But I should also note that not only did President Bolsonaro do better than expected, his allies did better than expected in terms of elections for the Senate, for the Chamber of Deputies, which is similar to our House of Representatives, and at the state level. They had votes for governor and they had votes for state assemblies. And so while Bolsonaro may lose 4 weeks from now, many of his people have already won. And so that's going to complicate progress starting next year.
First of all, tell your people in Brazil to let you and I and anyone else know when an incorrect electoral prediction or even political prediction, broadly speaking, is supposed to mean you no longer an expert. Because plenty of people stay wrong and stay being invited back to microphones and cameras and get a lot of people's attention and haven't yet been right. So you shouldn't be, punished for that, But to that point, though, in your prediction at the time that Hillary would have beaten Trump, for people like me, the difference in that apparent or that nominal quote unquote victory would not have been as significant as many like to claim. What of a Lula victory in relative, relatively speaking to Bolsonaro? Is that, you said progressives were predicting a stronger victory on his part, but would they actually get something for that victory beyond some sort of symbolic win?
Yes, I believe so. And Lula's background. He is.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I don't mean to disrespect him by comparing him to Hillary Clinton. I just was trying to make a parallel as a segue to my next question. That's all. But go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm just going to remind folks that this is a guy who grew up in, rural poverty, migrated with his family from the northeast of Brazil, Pernambuco, to Sao Paulo, the largest state in Brazil, and had to drop out of school in the 5th grade, started working as a child, been working ever since. Brother was an important communist in the labor movement. Lula began in the labor movement, the auto workers, the metal workers union in Sao Paulo, became the leader of that union, started as a traditional labor leader, but this is during the military dictatorship. So
in other words, it is just like Hillary's background. Go ahead, man. I'm just playing, man. Go ahead, man.
That's what I was going to get to. Lula, despite being cool with communists, Marxists, having them in the family, friends, etc., he was always known as a moderate. He was always a conciliator, but he was the one person who could bring everybody together in the labor movement. And, he was, I don't know how many times Hillary Clinton went to jail, but he went to jail for fighting for human rights and labor rights and wage increases and democracy. And this was, 40 years ago. He was in jail recently on a scam operation. And so I have a much higher evaluation opinion of Lula and the forces he represents than Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party. But Lula has become a center-left politician. And people often characterize him as leftist, socialist, radical. And he's has intimate relations with those forces and parties, but just pursued a policy of national unity, fighting against the forces of reaction. And so if he's elected, policies of inclusion, poverty reduction, affirmative action, etc., will continue. And I think those will be positive, net positive for the Brazilian people. But there are those who disagree, and it is what it is. But I would say that Bolsonaro has been much worse, not only of course of degree, but of kind than Lula and the president who succeeded him, President Dilma Rousseff. And so it's a very challenging situation right now, because I believe liberal democracy matters. It's important to be able to have elections, vote people into office to represent the people. Even that basic thing is at risk with Bolsonaro. And he's a former military captain, army captain, who threatens violence all the time if he doesn't get his way, and as his supporters do. And so you mentioned that I was in Salvador, Bahia earlier this year. I was for 4 months. I'm very disappointed that you didn't come and visit, but you know, you had your reasons, you had your priorities. And I was talking to a friend recently who I met there, and he said during the election it got so bad that Lula's security was asking for security. I mean, the threats and the violence against progressive politicians is no joke. And that's kind of the context that is going on in Brazil now, because Bolsonaro, he's a traditional law and order conservative. You know, from his perspective, a good criminal is a dead criminal. You know, he's about arming the population. You know, you take matters into your own hands. You protect yourself and your family. And so that's not good in a place which has a violent history, which has a history and current reality of police violence, police corruption, police brutality, because our people are usually on the receiving end of that violence.
Yeah, you know, well, let's just be clear. I want to clear this up while you're here, that in front of everybody. The reason I didn't go to Brazil to visit was that I had not been invited by Glenn Greenwald, and B, you could not guarantee that we were going to get to hang out with Glenn if I got down there. So I was like, if that's not possible on the guaranteed level, then what's the point? So I just want to clarify that before we move any farther this morning. Now, when you say when you say our people, Dr. Johnson, our people can mean a lot of different things depending where we are. And I know, you know, for instance, I will speak for myself. My identity changes almost daily depending where I go. But certainly when I cross borders going south, the identity changes. So let's talk a little bit about what our people means in Brazil. So when you say our people, talking about Black people, how is Blackness playing out down there? Because I think I heard somebody once say, to correct some famous politician once upon a time, that Brazil has the largest African population outside of the continent of Africa. How are those people? And then let's talk a little bit about these categories and how they play out in maybe these elections, or how they're playing out in the elections.
Well, when I say our people, I'm referring to Black people. I'm referring to Africans and African descendants. I'm referring to people of African ancestry. In Brazil, those people are officially the folks who check brown and Black in the census. Brazil has 5 race/color census categories, and they are white, black, brown, yellow, and indigenous. And so yellow refers to Asian Brazilians, brown refers to mixed race Brazilians, black refers to black Brazilians, usually visibly dark skinned, and white refers to Brazilians of European ancestry. And those are the 5 official census categories. But you're right, it's a little more complicated than that. And the Black movement, who I've worked with, who I've researched, they have pushed for combining black and brown to mean black, to mean Afro-Brazilian, to mean Afro-descendant. And if you do that, that population is over 50% of the Brazilian population. Brazil has over 200 million people. And so they have over 100 million Black folks or Afro-descendants, Afro-Brazilians. But Brazil, and I think I've shared this with you before, has a very important kind of national ideology called racial democracy. We refer to it as the myth of racial democracy. And this is a worldview that, on the one hand, minimizes the relevance of race and color by promoting nationality. We're all Brazilians. We all get along. We don't have segregation like they have in the United States. We don't have explicit racism, etc. But Black activists and scholars have argued, no, we do have racism, we do have discrimination, but it hasn't taken the same form as that in the United States and South Africa. And so they've been pushing for affirmation of Black identity, making race plain, making it a relevant topic in politics and scholarship to get a better understanding of Brazilian society and politics. Because if you visited Brazil, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, as I did, it was clear that something racial was going on. There was clear racial stratification in which the people who seemed to be poorer, most hard up, tended to be darker, and the people who wore business suits and dressed nice and lived in the nicer neighborhoods, they were white or light skinned. But the government didn't have a lot of data, official information, statistics. And so Black leaders have been fighting for including race and color in the census and all government studies and all government research. And so they made progress. And so we have a better understanding now of racial stratification, how it intersects with socioeconomic stratification, regional inequalities in Brazil. But the left and Black leaders in particular have taken the lead on trying to make race explicit and to make demands based on a more honest, accurate understanding of Brazilian society.
Right on. There are some comments and questions that I want to get to, and if folks are interested, and in particular, all power to the people. If folks are interested and can do so with a little bit more respect than I'm seeing in the chat and want to come up and raise a comment or a criticism, I think that's fine. I'll put the link in the chat in a minute, or just raise a particular comment in the chat, and I'll raise it for Dr. Johnson. But one question I wanted to ask very quickly: can we just, when we're talking about electoral politics and the potential for democracy and the myth of racial democracy and this, that, and the third, how does that relate sort of materially to Brazil's position in the global economy? So like what is the potential for Brazil to actually be able to enjoy what might be considered legit democracy or some sort of autonomy over their national politics, or to what extent is anyone going to be sublimated to international capital and IMF, World Bank, or U.S. foreign policy demands, interests, et cetera, and so forth. And maybe you could talk a little bit about where Brazil is with BRICS and all of that, and what that's meant to represent.
Well, Brazil has the potential to be a leader in international affairs, international politics, one of the leaders of the South. You mentioned BRICS. It's the largest country, largest economy in Latin America. And again, the most recent example we have of Brazil asserting itself more in international affairs in a kind of positive, proactive way was the government of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva from 2003 to 2010, in which he tried to represent Brazil as a peaceful country, a country that wants to create a more egalitarian world, as they were trying to do in Brazil with various programs. And so he believed, as he was as a union leader, he believed in negotiation, in conciliation. And so he thought he could play that role on the international stage, and did to a certain degree, but I think he ran into the reality that the United States is an imperialist power, and so it's going to do whatever it wants to do. He had meetings with Obama, tried to talk Obama and other world leaders out of some violent conflicts or some interventions that they were planning, and I think felt that they heard him, but they didn't, hear him. So he kind of pulled back from that. And so the contrast is just dramatic between the current president, who really is a war solves problems type of president on a domestic and the international front. And so the economy in Brazil is not doing as well as it was, 10 years ago. So the government has been totally unprepared and unable to address the challenges facing the Brazilian people. And I know that President Bolsonaro said that COVID was just a little flu, that
Right.
It'll go away, we don't have to worry about it. And 600,000, 700,000 Brazilians died, in part because of inadequate government response to this pandemic. And so I would not minimize nor exaggerate the differences between Lula and his, center left coalition, and Bolsonaro and his center right coalition.
Right on. Before I get to some of these questions real quick, one thing Brazil does have that, I can't, we can't ignore. One resource Brazil does have that's going to be on display next month is a likely World Cup champion squad. So when all else fails, you can at least rely on what looks like another deep run into the World Cup, because this squad is vicious and they're crushing folks in these games in the lead up. So I look forward to that. And as we know, Dr. Johnson, whether you host a World Cup or just do well in a World Cup, it solves all of the economic and political problems that the country faces. It just takes care of everything. So everything you're talking about is likely to be corrected, like I said, in about 30 days or so. So, just putting that out there as something to look forward to here. All right. Anyway,
can I respond to that?
Please.
Man, I wanted to have a good day today. I wanted to be happy today. But since you brought it up, I am so disappointed, not surprised, that Neymar endorsed President Bolsonaro for re-election.
Oh,
the famous, your hero, the famous Brazilian soccer player, one of the best in the world, supported Bolsonaro, did a little musical commercial jingle for him. And I love Brazilian soccer, but all of that has given me pause, man. I don't know if you remember Romario.
Just messed up my whole day. Yeah, I remember Romario.
He just got reelected to the Senate. He supports Bolsonaro. And so it's a very complicated situation.
Oh, that's why I try not to look too carefully at what's going on sometimes, because I don't want to know this. How am I supposed to watch this now?
I just thought you would want full information, full disclosure, man.
Man, all my favorites are disappointing me lately. Mbappe had come out with his nonsense about Central and South American players and continental African players, despite coming from the continent. Everybody's like, it's like I hate to say it, but it's my version of shut up and dribble. Like, I just play and stop running your mouths on about these politics, because I can't enjoy it anymore. Oh my God. Anyway, that's terrible. So I have to then assume that Pele and the real Ronaldo, El Fenomeno, have come out at least loudly for Lula, right? Is that what's happening?
Haven't seen that. Haven't heard that. Many artists.
Damn it, man.
Many popular artists and entertainers and athletes have supported Lula, but it's not consensus. And
yeah, that's it. It's just like all these years I'm on my, for years with the the NFL here. You read stories all the time. People come out of the hood, they get a big check, their tax bracket changes, they start voting Republican. It happens a lot. It's crazy. And Neymar comes out of all of the slums and all of the whatevers and is doing the same thing. I did. I set myself up. Damn it. That's what I get. Oh man, I was like, man, Dr. Johnson don't follow football. He don't know what's going on with these soccer players, man. But he knows what's happening with the politics. And damn it. Oh no. Oh, in 20 years he'll be Herschel. No. Anyway, let me that's terrible. Oh, that's terrible. got a question here. What about Lula? And I'm assuming this is the World Economic Forum. Did something happen? Does that mean anything to you, Dr. Johnson? A reference to Lula and the WEF? Maybe they can clarify that.
Well, let me just say that Lula, again,
okay. Mm-hmm.
Lula had many strengths and has been criticized a lot. But again, one of his strengths was trying to bring progressive forces together nationally and internationally, especially in Latin America. And so the president is criticizing Lula by saying, if Lula becomes president, he's going to have to start having those meetings again with other world leaders, World Social Forum, World Economic Forum, to try to, provide this alternative to the United States. We belong with the United States. And so, again, Lula was a more moderate version of Chavez and some of the revolutionary leaders in Latin America. And he had respect for them. I think they had respect for him. And that kind of had a lot of potential to counter U.S. hegemony and imperialism and just make some progress on the local, national, and regional, international front. Again, current president, he's the exact opposite. And let me say an important thing, one of the areas that I research, and again, I know you have a very sophisticated audience, so I'll put up this book again that I co-edited, Race, Politics, and Education in Brazil, is affirmative action, Jared. In the last 20 years, Brazil has developed, experimented with, and implemented one of the, if not the most impressive affirmative action regime for higher education in the world. And so the most prestigious sector of higher education in Brazil are the public universities, state and federal universities. And they used to be bastions of white elite families. And public universities in Brazil and many other countries are free, no tuition and fees. But the Black movement, the student movement, other progressive movements pushed for affirmative action, and they won. And Lula was very supportive of this policy. And now, for all federal universities, half of the incoming class has to come from public high schools. And public high schools tend to be considered the worst high schools in Brazil. That's where you go when you don't have money to go to a private high school. And so in the last 15 to 20 years, the public universities have become more working class, have become more diverse. And this is a big deal. This is a big deal because these students who benefited from affirmative action to get a high quality undergraduate education have now demanded affirmative action for graduate school, affirmative action for faculty positions and research positions. It really is an attempt to transform the Brazilian university system, which has been notorious as a elite system that only spoke to and benefited the well-to-do, the wealthy. And so that's a very exciting development. You can see it when you walk on campuses now. You have more Black students than ever. You have more working class, poor students than ever. And a lot of my colleagues are working on how to defend and deepen affirmative action, because the current president, he's against affirmative action. He doesn't believe in this concept of social inclusion, of diversity. And so people argue that because of this, in part, he's underfunding public universities, trying to starve public universities into submission and irrelevance by making their lives so difficult, compared to the Lula-Gilma era, in which Lula built universities, Lula gave substantial financial aid, developed different types of programs to expand educational opportunities for the people. So that was one of his.
That's so funny to hear you describe that assault on higher education, and I can't help it. I always think about that's what Dr. Jelani Favors said happened to the liberal arts within HBCUs as a means of attacking critical thinking, weakening critical thinking. Well, that's my interpretation of what he says in his book, that he doesn't seem to agree fully with my interpretation of what he says in his own book, but that's what I thought. That's what sounds. Yeah, okay, you all want to be in there, okay, we'll just empty it, and then you can all just be in there, in this emptied out, can you talk about the role of student movements in the public high schools and universities achieving those affirmative action policies? What role did the students play in that push?
High school and university students played key roles. Brazil has a very active student movement, and I think it's interesting because with affirmative action, it was the intersection of the Black movement and the student movement and the progressive movement, the left more broadly, that came together to make this happen, because the left has kind of always been more sympathetic to the myth of racial democracy, that, class struggle is what's most important. Capitalism is the problem. And if we engage in class struggle, struggle against capitalism, we're going to make progress, and Black folks, Afro-Brazilians are going to benefit along the way. The poor will benefit. But, Black movement said, no, capitalism is a problem. We need to engage in class struggle, but we are oppressed in part because we are Black people. And obviously, the 350 years of slavery is the evidence we have for that. And so this has been, an ongoing struggle to convince the white left elite and the white union elite that they should embrace affirmative action, and they should embrace specifying race as one of the most important cleavages in Brazilian society as part of this struggle against capitalism.
So Dr. Johnson, just quickly, because then I want you to continue, but I just see this other question. And speaking of things that we also don't know anything about up here in these United States, is colorism strong in Brazil?
Of course.
Are there lightning cream issues and lightning of skin methods being used down there?
No, I don't think the lightning skin creams are big. I'm not kind of familiar with that, but colorism is big in the sense that you have this racial stratification or color stratification in Brazilian society as a whole, but also within the Black community or within the Afro-descendant community. in which all the negative stereotypes of blackness and darkness apply. And so, who's most attractive? The lighter skin, women and men. Who's most beautiful? Lighter skinned women and men. And you have a barrage of stereotypes that go with that stratification that makes life more difficult for people who are Black, and especially people who are darker, on the darker end of the color spectrum, regarding intelligence, regarding proclivity to crime and other illegal activities. Unfortunately, the current president plays into all of that and reinforces that with his comments. And so I'll give you an example of a complication. The Black movement has always argued that Brazil is a majority Black nation, and that, but because of the negative stereotypes that have developed over centuries, many people of African ancestry, light-skinned Blacks or even light brown-skinned Blacks, don't necessarily identify as Black. And so we've got to convince these folks through political education, through our struggle, that it's okay and it's better for them if they just declare who they are, if they don't buy into the whitening ideology, the myth of racial democracy ideology. And I think progress has been made on that front, in the sense that you have people who are light-skinned, light complexion, declaring that they're Black, that they're Afro-Brazilian, and proud of it. But with affirmative action opening up a lot of educational opportunities and job opportunities in civil service, what do you have? And even though it's usually, public school is the first filter, there are usually racial or color sub-quotas, for example. And so you have this phenomena of racial fraud. You have people who have never identified as Black, as Afro-descendants, when they apply to university, applying as Black or brown.
Again, we don't know anything about these types of issues up here, so this is all fascinating newness you're sharing.
And I interviewed Black activists and politicians when I was in Brazil, and they're outraged by this because they feel this is another example of the white elite who already have so many advantages, who already have so many opportunities, taking advantage of a situation in which Brazilian society is trying to be more socially and racially inclusive by declaring themselves Black or brown. And this is controversial because some of these white people who declare themselves Black or brown say, no, I really am brown, or I really am Black, and come up with pictures of their Black grandparents and pictures of their great. And Jared, I don't know if you know this, but many universities have color verification committees.
Oh, damn.
Right, that students have to go to.
So it is like in that episode of Atlanta where you got to sit before Kevin Samuels and his crew and prove your blackness by knowing classic R&B tracks and sitcom references. Is that how it?
Close, not exactly. I had this explained to me in Brazil, and again, Black leaders, Black students, Black activists, they're adamant. I think they know how problematic, this seems, but they're like, no, white students are really taking these spots. It really isn't fair. They're really defrauding the system. I mean, the system was set up to be inclusive, and they're really misusing it. And so for example,
no, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, some of the most prestigious areas of study in Brazil are law and medicine. And so Black activists have made public pictures of an incoming class or a graduating class of lawyers and doctors. And the university says, we're so proud that 20% of this class was black and brown, or 25% of this class was black and brown. And you don't see any visibly black or brown people in the photo. And they say, see, this is the problem. This is a problem. And so they've succeeded in politicizing race and color. And I really felt the outrage talking to them, interviewing them, trying to make the argument that hasn't the Black movement always said that majority of the population is Black, and Blackness is not about color, it's about affirmation, who you are, how you identify, your family. They're like, no, these are folks who they're defrauding the system. They really never identified as Black, even though they might have a great grandfather was Black or a grandmother who was Black. They are not seen as Black in Brazilian society and culture. And so that played out in these elections here, where sometimes politicians perceive it as advantageous to declare yourself brown when people don't necessarily think of you as brown. And so activists have questioned the declared.
But how do but who comprises these committees? And then what is the criteria? Like I really am fascinated by this now. Like I'm not even saying it's not legitimate. I'm just curious, like, how does that work? Who gets to be on one of these committees, these verification committees? And then what is the criteria? Like is it one grandparent, a great grandparent, plus you have to have, hung out at a certain spot enough? I mean, how do you demonstrate that you did that?
Well, I think it's made up of
because ultimately Yipper is correct. This is my concern. How would I fare, pun intended, in these committees? Like how would Jared do if that committee were to take place here in the United States? Like when reparations gets handed out and they put together that Black committee, does my time here at BPM get me over? How many grandparents do I have to demonstrate? And then who gets to be on that panel judging me?
Well, the panels have students, faculty, staff, administrators. So it's a cross section of university community. And I think
Elizabeth Warren and Rachel Dolezal would be they'll be there. I'm sorry, my bad, man. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think the key would be proving that you identified as brown or Black before applying to the university. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and I think they get to that through asking for documentation, but also interviewing folks. And so they found that many people who um, apply as brown or black, but have been accused by other students of not being brown or black, they don't even show up for the interview. They don't even go before the committee because, you know, the committee, you know, interprets these people as knowing they're lying, knowing they were going to get busted, and then not wanting to go through this. Some people have come to the committee with wigs, with dark makeup to make them appear blacker.
They didn't show up in blackface to
This
their
is what
own
I'm telling
black
you, man.
verification hearing.
This is what I'm telling you. This is what.
So that
Jared,
should be an
this-
easy no right there. You show up in makeup, you show up in blackface to your verification, you disqualify yourself.
This is what they told me this summer, man. People on the committee. One of my former students who studied at Wayne State University on an exchange program, she went back to Rio. She's at the Federal University of Rio. She's on this committee. She's on this committee and said that people show up. A lot of people don't show up, and then a lot of people show up after having spent, a week or two at the beach, so they have a darker complexion.
Wow.
Wearing their hair a certain way to be more Afrocentric, or wearing makeup, and so this is where we are, man. And again, my sense is that Black movement activists, they have clarity on this, that they feel that this is just a way of white folks to continue to take advantage of the system to their benefit, because they don't want to share. They don't want to share the opportunities. They don't want to share the advantages that a higher education or a civil service job will give to people of African ancestry. That's how I interpret it.
No, anyway. So listen, as we unfortunately have to get ready to wrap up here, what are there any sort of concluding thoughts or any points you want to highlight again on the way out about what those of us outside of Brazil should be, maybe why we should be concerned about Brazil's elections, or maybe what we could expect, but why should we be concerned? Just as something to think about as we wrap up.
Well, I want to encourage folks to pay attention to what's going on in Brazil, because Brazil is the largest country in Latin America, does have the largest Afro-descendant population in the Americas, have many similarities and differences with our situation here. And I think it benefits us all to be more knowledgeable and to be in solidarity with folks there, as we ask them to be in solidarity with us in terms of our struggles against capitalism, racism, sexism, and all the oppressive forces that we face here in the United States. So I encourage folks to visit when they can, and to check out the situation.
All right. Well, Dr. Johnson, thank you very much. And again, the link to your work and more is in the show description. Please do. I encourage people to check it out and follow up. And I look forward to having you back. And let's tighten up that invitation from Glenn Greenwald. So otherwise, really, again, like I said, there's no point in me coming down there if I don't get at least a good meal, some sit down time with good GG. So let's work on that, Dr. Johnson, because I'd like, why else go to Brazil?
We can make it happen.
All right, my man. Thanks a lot. All right, folks, hold on. Much more coming up here at I Mix What I Like. Peace to Dr. Johnson, because we know he's willing to fight for it. More soon here at I Mix What I Like.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.
All right, good people. Again, big shout out to Dr. Johnson and all those who are here in the chat. And I'm expecting Brother Leroy Moore to pop up here any minute now so we could talk about some more Krip Hop. And to follow up on his recent visit to the Brokish show, which I was looking forward to chop up with him about, because petty as I am, I didn't get the proper credit for the relationship between Brother Moore and the channel. I've somehow the foundation got ignored. So I was much looking forward to that. So we'll continue to. I thought he was actually on his way, so I'll continue to check for him. In the meantime, if anybody has any comments or questions for me, please do drop it in the chat. In the meantime, let me take a quick break here and go check on our good brother and see what's going on. Don't go anywhere. Got much more coming up again here at I Mix What I Like.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.
They say when you wear Black Power Media gear, you can accomplish anything. You play any and every position. Coaching, to kicking, to receiving, to running and juking. And, oh my goodness, I see that again in slow motion. Get off me. And you're going to have a lot of haters coming at you, but what you got to do is you got to shake them off, and get to your goal and accomplish it. And when that's done, it's a beautiful thing. I'm talking about going hard, extra, for that extra point. And when it's done beautifully, you talking about touchdown. Oh, and the crowd goes wild and they're celebrating with you and everything. Man, let's see that again. Nice.
Black Power Media, baby. That's how we do it.
Now go to blackpowermedia.org and get you some of that gear. Empower yourself today. Yeah.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.
Big shout out to Ear Doctor for the commercial and for last night's Sundays. If you didn't get a chance to see it, you should always be checking out Sundays with the Ear Doctor at 8 o'clock. But we had a special post-birthday celebration. Had a lot of fun last night. Had a lot of fun. It's like a musical autobiography, a mixtape musical autobiography that he did for my birthday. It was dope. We had a lot of good time, a lot of fun, a lot of good music. It's definitely worth an hour of your time in retrospect. And the video survived. I'm a little shocked. So well done. Big shout out to Ear Doctor and the commercials as well. And yes, Shirley is exactly right that, again, as I've said, I'm very much Dustin Hoffman's character from Wag the Dog, at least in the sense that I want the credit, almost to my own detriment. I want the credit. But when the good sisters at Brokish are interviewing Leroy Moore and they're talking about how they learned of him through the great Kim Brown, which is no doubt her show is fantastic, no shade there, but Kim Brown only learned Brother Leroy from we go way back. Poor Magazine, shout out to Poor Magazine, shout out to Leroy and Krip Hop. So anyway, that's how that went. So let's not, yeah, no doubt. But yeah, no question. Sundays is always fun. By the way, I think somebody in one of the comments legit thought was making fun, like, I think unironically making fun of me as being a bougie, very rich academic, and thought that this was actually my house. Anyway, so shout out to the quality of the green screen. Anyway, still endeavoring to check on what's up with brother Leroy, but yeah, this is a new part of the house. Yeah, new. If by new you mean a new background on the green screen, no question. Petty spaghetti, early. Let me see. I think there was actually, I got nothing. So I had no backup. So maybe we can just wrap early if Brother Leroy's not here, unless other people got questions or comments. Anybody want to jump up here? We can do that. Otherwise, it's not a problem. I'm telling you that 2%, boy. Yeah, it was actually closer to 4. But then they raised the gas price, so my trip to work already wiped out I mean, literally wiped out. I don't think the COLA actually even covers the cost of the trip to work. But it's whatever. It's all good. Appreciate you. Definitely had and do check out the Sundays last night. It was a good time. Well, dang. I mean, maybe I'll call Ollie back. No, he didn't. We didn't talk. We didn't get to the. I should have asked him about that. Yeah, so I don't know. I was just in touch with Leroy early this morning, confirming the let me just see. I don't know. The brother's busy. Maybe he's not able to make it this morning. It ain't no thing but a chicken wing. So we did try to, and actually looked into this kind of thing. It's very hard to do this stuff without running into copyright. And I don't mean the kind of copyright where they just give us a warning and like we get like with Sundays and stuff with the music or something like that, like where they pull the video and give you copyright strikes and start threatening your channel. So it's very hard. From my humble perspective, it's very hard to figure that out, how to do that. The only way I would know of doing it, the easiest legal way of doing it would be, kind of like the way I see people do the headphone quiet dance parties, where everybody would at the same time at their own device start a movie, and then we could all gather here and talk about what we're seeing off the screen here. But if that's what you mean, that's the only way I could think of really getting away with it at this point. Yeah. So man, we can't even get Mama's Biscuits back together. We're having a hard time getting. People are scattered all over the place and in varying states of capability at this point. I don't know. Yeah, honestly, I don't know how Discord works. So I don't, if that means that there's a way of getting away with stuff like that there. Recaps, I think, is a good idea. That's pretty much true, actually. Everybody got kids. But what I really want to do is the Mama's Biscuits story, because I actually think it's very legit. If we told the story of Mama's Biscuits for real, it would be a really good movie. I mean, a very, very good movie. It would have every single thing that you want, from mild violence to obviously sex, drugs, music. And I guess it would be safe to say at this point, wife swapping. But I think it's in a way probably, it's like a giveaway to say it, but like, there's not really been a good movie. I'm not aware of any good movie about the university band scene. So even among all the movies about music, that particular scene, I don't think has actually been dealt with. And it would provide a lot. So through the story of Mama's Biscuits, you could get like, there's a lot that could be done with that. But anyway. Yeah. Not everything, but there are a couple things I've been involved in my life that would be a good film. Absolutely. And I don't think we get in Brother Leroy. So I already did put it in the show description because, as I said, I was going to, make fun of that a little bit and piggyback off of their conversation. But the discussion he had with the sisters from Brokish is really good. Despite there's a little bit of audio technical issues at the beginning, but it's still well worth a watch and listen. So one thing that I'll at least just share, since we're sitting here and I had it pulled up, that I had looked up, is that, hold up, let me since I had it, let me I did want to ask him about what he thought about this. In just something I was reading, trying to catch up to a little bit of background on what Leroy does, because what Leroy's work focuses on a lot is ableism directed at Black disabled people, particularly ableism coming from within the Black community, and just in oh wait, is he coming in? So then maybe he is about to show up. In which case I'll ask him about this directly. But the short of it is, there are those targeting the buying power of the disabled community. And whenever I see these, no, he's wait, no, you can't. No, join the link I sent above. And waiting. All right, here we go. All right, everybody, let's do it this way. Let's do a quick reset, and then we'll come back with our guest. Don't go anywhere.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.
All right, everybody, joining us here in just a moment as he's getting himself together is someone who I've had the fortune of being aware of and in communion with on various, I guess, in a variety of ways over the years, and someone who, as I said, does a lot of work around the disabled community within the Black community, the Black disabled community, and the ableism that they suffer, including directly from the Black community itself. He was recently on our sister program, Brokish. He's been on with Kim Brown recently, and of course, had been on with me first. Like, I'm just playing. But among other things, he is a founder of Krip Hop. Leroy F. Moore Jr., who is an African-American writer, poet, community activist who was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. Moore was born in New York in 1967 to an activist father, loosely connected to the Black Panthers. His upbringing sensitized Moore to the challenges faced by African-Americans and the disabled as a youth. Moore discovered that most people had little knowledge of the historical impact of disabled African Americans. This led him to begin research initially in the music industry. More on that can be found at kriphopnation.com, linked in the show description below. And joining us now is Leroy Moore Jr. Welcome to the show once again, brothers. Good to see you. Welcome. Uh-oh, can you hear me? You're muted. I don't hear you. I don't hear you. Can you check your audio connect real quick? And then, and yes, EZD, we're going to get to that if you're not familiar with the phrase and the history. In fact, that's one of the questions that I had for Leroy, that I have for you, Leroy, once we get your audio hooked up. It's something that you talked briefly about with the sisters from Brokish, and the history of that name, Krip Hop, and its relationship even to the Crips street organization, which is something I don't recall hearing you say before, and definitely wanted to ask you about. Anything I can help you with over there? Are you able to hear me, Leroy? And well, all right. He's all right. I'm going to keep working with it. Anyway, let me just come back to this real quick, and then I'll ask him about it when he gets it together, because this is just very quickly. I was reading something else that was talking about the overall treatment or maltreatment of those with disabilities, and in the article was referenced sort of akin to what happens with Black buying power, to this idea that, look, I've laid out the case for why disabled people should be treated better, that disabilities doesn't make you subhuman. But if that doesn't work, let me remind you that the disabled community is in control of billions and trillions of dollars that those in corporate America and the marketing community would want to respect. Which led me to look at this report that came out from the global, called The Global Economics of Disability, from Rich Donovan. I don't know anything about I just saw it briefly this morning. But it just claims that the disability market controls over $13 trillion in disposable income. And it seems that the Census Bureau is their only source of data on this. So I'm suspicious that their concluding numbers here are based on, again, wild extrapolations that aren't really sound. But it just, again, but what strikes me whenever I see these because buying power being referenced in terms of all manner of communities, it's done specifically for marketing purposes. And I don't hear, and to the extent I do, I would caution against these communities doing what has been encouraged within Black communities, that is, adopt buying power as a pathway to liberation. But again, if Black people are supposed to be powerful based on their buying power, then what are they in comparison if similarly a group labeled as the disabled market or the disability market, which of course would include some Black people, controls over $13 trillion in disposable income, as they say. So what it means to control something, what it means to be disposable income, all would have to be vetted and discussed. But again, it's the same kind of pathway to nonsense that, when shown to Black people, is dressed up as the best path towards freedom and equality. Other communities, it becomes, I think, more of an argument from their spokespeople or people claiming to speak on their behalf who are trying to attract some money. It's just that simple. And I thought we had brother Leroy. I'm not sure what happened. So maybe we'll just have to try again. And we can always get him back on if necessary with one of our brother or sister programs here, and then they could take credit. It's like I'm just playing. Brother Moore, how we doing? Are we able to hear each other now? Yeah, there we go. There we go. There we go.
All right, thank you, Gerald. What's up?
What's going on, my man? How you been? It's good to see you again.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Just doing this PhD thing.
It's light work. It's light work. Where are you in that process, by the way?
Second year.
Okay, right on. Right on. Well, good luck. And as Ward Churchill has said, getting that piled high and deep. And we look forward to Dr. Moore coming back soon. So, look, I was saying what I would like to do is as much as just like I was trying to do when Professor Taiwo was here and piggyback off of his previous or in recent visit to our platform. You were just on recently with the sisters from Brokish. That's again linked in the show description. So I don't want to repeat everything that was there, and I don't want to repeat everything that you've talked about when you were here with us before. So in the time that we have left, there's a couple things that I did want to talk with you about that I heard on that program with Brokish that I'd love for you to elaborate on. Okay. One, you made reference to what you call Black Disabled History 101. And you were saying that one of the problems just within the Black community is that Black people don't have an appropriate disabled history or a history of Black disabled people. And you mentioned some key individuals and relationships to more popularly known movements. But I wanted you to take a few minutes, if you would, to expand on that concept and that point and to talk a little bit more about what is Black Disabled History 101.
Yeah, well, a couple of years ago, I was doing a talk at University of San Francisco, and both professors, Emily and her coworker approached me and said, "Oh, you used to do a book," because I like you said, I've been collecting information since I was a teenager, going back to the 70s, around Black disabled people in history. You know, from Harriet Tubman to Al Hippler, to all the blues singers, to Robert Winters, soul singer, to, just a lot of people. And so we put that book out, like about 5-6 years ago, called Black Disabled History 101. It has a list of black disabled people from the arts, from activism, from you name it. So when that book came out, we also did a class at University of San Francisco teaching the book. And one thing that we noticed is that most of the students were special education majors and really did not have a framework around disability as a positive cultural, historical, activism kind of framework. So they couldn't even grasp what I was teaching. So we had to go back and really, try to erase the ableism that they were taught from teachers, from, the special education majors, and really lay down Black disabled history, disability justice, and disability culture, and they finally got it, but it just taught me that even in educational systems, professors that teach, special education. They are coming from a prospect that's outdated and that's very not helpful for our disabled students. And as you know, special education is made up mostly by Black and brown youth. So, yeah.
So, you mentioned people like Harriet Tubman, and I know often we don't think of Harriet Tubman and many others as disabled. We don't focus on that. So why do you think that's important? So, and then even as this comment reads here, with a Captain America icon, by the way. I mean, wow. But saying that, so it's suggesting that is this further segregation of the community between men and women, and now between the disabled. So in other words, why is it important to focus on the disabled wing of the Black struggle, as opposed to just seeing these people as part of the Black struggle?
Well, I mean, if you don't know your history, then you just don't know your history. Black disabled people have a history. I mean, you can't call yourself a Black radical if you don't know the real history. And so, Black disabled people have history going back to slavery. So it's important to learn about that history, so you can talk about it in your classrooms. You can talk about it with your children. You can talk about it. So I think it's definitely important, especially now with disability studies, in universities, and hip hop is another 50 years old. Welcome to disability hip hop. You're supposed to be an elder. So what does that mean, being 50, being 60, and your knees are giving out, your back is giving out. So, like Chaos once said, love is gonna get you, disability is gonna get you, and so yeah.
Okay. All right. Right on. What's the name of your book?
So the book is called Black Disabled History 101. So you can Google it. It's there. Black Disabled Art History 101. Black
And it's
Disabled Art History 101.
Black Disabled Art History 101. And it's all, they can get all of this through the Krip Hop Nation website, right? Isn't all your stuff linked through there?
Not yet, but it will
okay.
be. You can Google it. We Krip Hop is going through, a transition. We are under an LLC of my the co-founder of Krip Hop, Keith Jones. So we're trying to push together those two websites right now. But you can just Google my name, Google Black Disabled Art History 101.
Right on. So, when we're talking about Krip Hop, I definitely wanted you to take a minute to break that down. But I don't recall hearing you say what I did hear you before, hearing what I heard you say on Brokish recently, that Stanley Tukey Williams, who was recently the center of some controversy on this platform. You said that that the original name for the Crips street organization comes out of crippled people being crippled. I thought it was what happened to the whole thing about community revolution in progress or something to that, and the whole connection to the Panthers and the whole, because I don't recall any of this in what's that documentary that put me on anyway. So like could you talk a little bit about that and what Krip Hop means?
Yeah, so I read in Tukey Williams, I don't know if it's in his book or in his articles, is that he traces the word Crip, and he said that one of the members had a disability. So it's like, oh, we just call you crippled, and it's like, oh, boom, Krip. So that's what I read, you know. So
Okay.
with Krip Hop, we're just, you know, just like hip hop, you turn something that's negative into a positive, and boom, you educate people with it. So Krip Hop is saying, okay, Tookie, thank you. But, you know, that word came from a person with a disability. So we're going to take it, flip it, and do some hip hop education around, you know, people with disabilities in hip hop. So that's what the term, you know, comes from. And also in disability circles, Krip is a term that we use in our community, you know, just like you know, the N word is used in the Black community, you know, as
Yeah, I was going to ask. I thought that
yeah.
was. I thought that was supposed to be a derogatory statement, but that's how it is. Okay.
yeah. So,
You know, as we were waiting for you to come on, I was talking a little bit about something I had found in just trying to read up on some things, and this issue of disabled buying power and
that's
marketing.
bullshit. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just want. Yeah, I was just wondering what. Yeah, that's it. I was going to ask what you thought about that, and if you see that as something that's being used in your circles in broader disabled community struggle. Is that something being used by some?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Promoter. Yeah.
Well, you have to realize that in the 80s, Frank Bowe was a researcher, for the U.S. Census, and he put out the only report of disabled people at the time, and he had a report on race and disability, and he broke it down to Black people, Hispanic people. And in that report, I still have it today because it's so true. In that report, he says, you know, 98% of all Black disabled people were unemployed, and so that's in the 80s. And so you come back to today, and it's almost the same thing. You know, Black disabled people, besides Native American disabled people, have the highest rate of unemployment, have the highest rate of not finishing school, and these numbers, you know, haven't really drastically changed since the 80s. So
you're saying Black disabled people are still 98% unemployed, roughly?
Roughly in the 90s or in the 80s, it is really high.
But you're saying it hasn't changed that much. So are you saying it's still close to that today?
I think so. You know, I might be wrong, but I think so. You know, I've seen reports, and what's so interesting is that the U.S. Census, the last one, did not break it down with disability, unfortunately. But you know, other reports out there have Black disabled people unemployment rate in the 80s. You know, so you know it hasn't really changed a lot. So the buying power of people with disabilities, I mean, that report must be a joke because, you know, especially with black disabled people. I was just on Facebook talking to a Black disabled young woman they're trying to get her PhD, and she's been faced with discrimination at her university constantly. You know, I did a 3-part series before coming to UCLA and interviewed 4 disabled people of color, and they all have been going or have their PhDs, and none of them are working. So it's
Look, I mean, I've only skimmed the report briefly this morning, but a couple red flags were: one, it's based on Census Bureau data, which is not economic data per se. And the other red flag was that it's just based. The other red flag was people with disabilities those who self-reported as having disabilities.
Wow.
So when I read that, to me, the first thing I thought of, it sounded a lot like when they were trying to defend the racist name of the Washington football team all those years. One of the things they would say is, well, we keep doing these studies where we ask indigenous people around the country, are they offended by Redskin? And they keep telling us they're not offended. And in all the studies, they're like, we call people who self-report as Native American. So that could be anybody. You're calling somebody who's, they could be 1/1,000,000th Native American and claiming it. They could be white and just saying it. They could be whatever. And then, so I'm wondering if that could be something, because this report is not claiming this is Black disabled buying power. They're saying all disabled people. So are they, they could be lumping you in with a very wealthy white person with however they're defining a disability, self-reporting it, and may not be in anywhere categorizable with you.
Yeah.
So anyway,
and we have to realize, who is doing the report. The same thing happened a couple of years ago. This national report around police brutality against people with disabilities came out, and come to find out it was 2 white people doing the report. It's like, what kind of crap is this? They didn't mention the Malcolm X Grassroots Center in New York that came out with a report around mental health disabilities in police. So we really have to question, who's doing the report. Is it coming from within the community or without the community? Do the authors have, relationship with the community? So, we can do reports all day, and that doesn't change the outlook.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, what's the latest right now that you're working on, and is there any like particular campaign you're wanting to bring people's attention to, or anything in particular, like latest developments that you wanted to make us aware of?
So I really want to talk about police brutality against people with disabilities, because I think, well, I don't think I know, because I've been doing this since the 80s. We've seen, campaigns come and go. We see grassroots organizations come and go. I was there when Eleanor Bumpers, an elder woman in New York, got shot up, and that was in the 80s. And I wrote to the family, and so we saw October 22nd, we saw Mothers Against Police Brutality, we saw Black Lives Matter, and still Black disabled people are getting shot. And it's really nowhere to be found, because in the media, most of the times, they don't put disability in the article. So you have to dig for it. And if you don't dig for it, then you don't get it. And a lot of lawyers, I've interviewed top lawyers, and they have really no clue around disability. And one lawyer from Oakland told me in my face, saying, well, I told him, why does, when it comes to Black disabled people, we don't get no media around the issue. And he told me, he was like, well, the disability community is not loud enough. He told me that in my face in the 90s. So So I see this, and I see cases and cases. Gerald, I seen articles where police are in nursing homes. I was like, nursing homes? Why the freak are police in nursing homes? You know, it's like this is outrageous. And now because of Biden, getting police so much money. They're everywhere. They're in nursing homes, group homes, and those places are where Black disabled people are. So I think the cases and cases. Going around this Black disabled young boy in the Target store, and he had his wallet, and the cops thought his wallet was something else and tackled this boy in front of his family. So these cases keep on going, and what hurts us is that these multi-million dollar activism come out and they destroy anything that's going on the ground. So Black Lives Matter and all that stuff. It didn't really talk about disability. Although we try to educate them around disability justice and all that stuff, they didn't talk about disability. Man, they crushed disability activism from the ground up. So I talk about this because I sent you in a video that I did years ago talking about 3 generations of Black men doing police brutality activism. My granddad, my father, and me. 3 generations. So if you have 3 generations doing activism around this issue and really nothing has changed, then you have to say, okay, the system wants it that way. The system wants it that way. The system always comes back with the same cycle. Like, okay, we got a case, the parents get talked to by a lawyer, to crush, activism, and it's only about police training. And if you see that cycle's been there since the 80s. Police training came from the Memphis, Tennessee program around mental health and disability. It came out in like 89, 88. And we were still having the same cycle since 1988, 89 around police training.
Do you all actually keep statistics on the percentage of Black victims of police violence that have a disability? Is that something that's known?
No. I used to keep cases, but I can't keep up nowadays. But no, that's another thing. There's no national data around that, and a lot of people want the government to do it, and that is so funny. It's like the government's not going to do that. The government is protecting the police, so the government is not going to take data. But there was this Bay Area activist group that kept data and that reached out to me a couple of years ago. I forget their name, and wanted to include disability into that data. But I mean, beyond that, there's really no local or national data. Sometimes big time media like NBC, did a data poll a couple of years ago, but beyond that, there's no data around police brutality against people with disabilities. The report that I was talking about, the 2 white guys that did that report, it says that 50% of all cases are people with disabilities. I say it's 70% because most of the times reports only include mental health disabilities. But if you open it up to include all disabilities, especially people with autism, because that's the latest increase of cases is people with autism. Usually mental health, and it still is mental health. But if you include all disabilities, I say it jumps up to 70%. Of course, I don't have, I just have cases in my library, that says that. But yeah.
I mean, it probably would take the kind of work. I'm thinking of when I'm forgetting her name all of a sudden, but the woman that did the every 28 hours, the first every
Yeah.
28 hours report, where
Yeah.
you would have to your point, as she did, you can't just go by the headline or the surface level date, reporting.
Yeah.
She had to
Yeah.
dig into the reports to
Yeah.
get to, because in some cases they don't want to tell you the race of the victim,
Exactly.
or they want to say, to find all the specific disabilities of the victim would probably take a lot of additional combing of whatever's reported.
Exactly, and that's what I always say, that it should be like coming together with the grassroots, Malcolm X Center and the disability community to do that report. That's the kind of work that should be done. But it's not done.
Yeah, we should you know what, Leroy, let's stay in touch on that one, my man.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can maybe BPM at some point could fund a research study, a research project. We could, hire a couple of researchers to put that together.
Yeah, I mean that'd be great.
I'd like to say I'd love to be able to say I could do this with grad students, but I'd be lying to you if I said that. So, but I think maybe that'd be a worthy project. I think we should keep that.
Yeah, I've been talking about that for years. It should as a report from the Malcolm X Graduate Center to some community-based, especially Black community-based center, collaborating with the disability community to do that report, because Gerald, it hasn't been done since the 80s. It hasn't been done. I shake my head. It's like, why? I mean, like I said, people with disabilities have the highest cases of police brutality. So why hasn't that report been done? And I give shout out to the Malcolm X Graduate Center to at least do mental health and disability, and that report was strong. Yeah.
So what I would like to tentatively propose, Leroy, is that over the next few months, you get with your crew to identify who would organize, structure, and lead this project. Identify what would be needed, like in terms of resources for the research, and to Quaker Anarchist's question, I think there would be room for volunteers, but I don't know, whoever leads this could determine that. And then we can maybe we could do a little BPM support for that, and that would be our way of contributing to that. Yeah, but I think, but somebody organizing and structuring the methodology and all of that would be important. But once we did that, or once you all did that, I feel like we could kick in, BPM could maybe kick in and help. So anyway, my humble proposal is start thinking about who you would like to see in place, and then let's reconnect in a couple of weeks on this offline and see what's what.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that offer. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great research project. Anyway, so look, in the last couple of minutes that we have, let me give you some last words or anything you want to re-highlight or re-emphasize, and definitely remind us how to get in touch. The link to Krip Hop Nation is in the show description already. Any final thoughts for this morning?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for Black Power Media, always including, Black disabled issues. I want to say to the viewers out there that Krip Hop is just blowing up. We are about to start our own channel, not on YouTube, but our own independent channel. We're still working with Inglewood, and we're still working to have the Krip Hop Institute to go up before the Olympics come here in 4 years in LA. So yeah, and I just won a couple of awards in LA. Just won this athlete global athlete community award, and so yeah, Krip Hop is coming up, and we've been here, but hip hop is turning 50, and welcome to your back breaking out. Welcome to disability. So get with Krip Hop.
Right on. Hey, Leroy Moore Jr., thank you very much for coming through once again. And as I said, we'll stay in touch and look to project build together. And BPM is here as an outlet for you to be supportive, man. Congratulations on everything. Best of luck to you, and catch you next time. Because, like Fred Hampton said, I know you willing to fight for it. So definitely peace to you, my man.
Yeah, thank you, Gerald, and thank you for Black Power Media.
Right on. All right. Take care now. Peace. All right, everybody. Big shout out to Leroy Moore for coming through, and big thanks to all of you as well. Please continue to support the platform. If you got something to say,
put it in the comments.
We definitely want you to do that. Put it in the comments. Because I want to make sure that I didn't
Got punked again.
By the way, my man, I went on his live stream yesterday. He did a live stream of the game yesterday, and I went on and let him know, as you can see here, that I memed his show. Like, I'm a big fan now. I went on his Washington Commanders. Forgive the racism and symbol there. We're not fully evolved yet, but because I always have to ask, it's always important.
What is we doing?
My humble suggestion to Big Simple, that's his name, Big Simple. Just real quick, if you happen to, if anybody he knows or he happens to see this, I love what you all are trying to do. Definitely do us a favor. Grab a couple microphones for you and your partners, and some lights, just some lights in the room. Turn them on, and when you do the live stream of the game, I think it would be doper if you all did a little bit more play-by-play. So, like, I couldn't watch the game, but I was trying to watch your coverage of the live game and was having fun with it. But I think it would be even more fun if you were actually commenting on the plays as they were happening. That would be dope. But anyway, shout out to Big Simple. Yeah. Oh, he was real cool with it. He was very cool. He was appreciative, very appreciative guy. Like he was like, he was thankful. I don't think he got that I was doing it as part of I don't know if he was fully clear or not, but it was all good. He was laughing about it, had a lot of fun. But yeah, that's how the cola is being used, and it's only going to get worse. Anyway, so one other thing very quickly that I forgot to mention in my shout out to let me get back in my yeah, so we were I'm gonna go back to my fancy apartment. Or basement or whatever this is, my fancy library. And but a big shout out to Ear Doctor for that birthday thing last night. The one thing that I failed to mention in terms of music appreciation, we didn't talk anything really about salsa. So I just wanted to say that was underrepresented in the conversation about my life and music last night on Ear Doctor's show. So anyway, good people, as I've said before, it's an honor to give you all, to be the excuse you all need to gather as the remixer community. Please continue to support BPM in any ways, whether you can drop a few or whether it's just we appreciate all of it. So just don't do none of that, because that would
it's wrong, bro.
So continue to support the show and the platform, like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and be on hand for the Remix Morning Show tomorrow morning, bright and early, and then I'll be back on Friday. So thanks everybody once again. Peace only, as Fred Hampton said, if you're willing to fight for it, which I know all of you are. Catch you next time here at I Mix What I Like and on the platform more broadly speaking. Thanks again, everybody. Peace.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.